Hold on. I got it now. I figured. Hey! Hey, everybody. My name is Matt, and you're with Matt and Adam. And our stream is called Why I Hate My IT Dude. And
Hi,
this is our
everyone.
this is our second episode. We could tell you that we just did a whole episode, and possibly I wasn't streaming. It doesn't matter, but because we're streaming now. Oh, there we are. I can see it's being live. So we're talking about the difference between a workstation and a server. And
Mhm.
I just don't understand. I mean, I go to Best Buy and I buy a workstation. What's the difference? Why do I need a server?
So it's a good question. So servers, there's usually a business driver. There's a business reason why it makes sense to have a server.
Yep.
And typically what that is a business will be in the 5 to 10 employee range. They've grown to a point where people need to collaborate.
So can't you just install? I mean, you're saying collaborate. So let's use the thing as a game. So if
Sure.
we're all going to play asteroids, can't you just put asteroids on everybody's computer? Why do you need a server?
Right. And so the server is what connects everybody together. I think video games are a good metaphor because people want to play together at the same time, right? They want to shoot the asteroids on the same screen together. They want to see
Oh,
people
okay.
interacting.
So if they want to play together, then they all
Right.
have to have a server to intersect the game. Is that what you're saying?
hmm Right. And the server is what brings that together. So all the computers hook in, so to speak.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I have an idea. It's kind of like if you're playing Uno, right?
Yeah,
You
it's like
know,
solitaire versus Uno,
gotcha.
where
That's a metaphor I thought of. So if you're playing Uno, you need a server to connect all the people. Is that right?
yes.
Okay. And then, sorry, I'm adjusting my monitor here. I'm just getting that going. Okay, good. And then, and then, what's the difference in hardware inside of a server? So we
hmm
all need a bigger, beefier machine for whatever reason. But what's the
Right.
difference in the hardware?
So what it comes down to is it's really Um, although the parts maybe are more heavy duty or beefier, the real difference is redundancy,
Okay.
right? In a server, um, take for instance in a normal workstations, the two components that are most likely to fail are a hard drive and your power supply. So in a server that's connecting everyone, we want to make sure we have multiple of those ready to go on the fly. So if a hard drive fails, the server keeps chugging away. If a power supply blows out, it stays up and running. And then your company, your people can stay productive. And then your IT guy or IT provider comes in, they swap that part out, and the server just keeps chugging the whole time.
So a server is like, I'm gonna try to fix something on my end. Thank you for your patience, Adam.
Yeah, it looks like it went out for just a second, but
It did, and then
oh, what echo? What do you mean?
I that there's just a weird. Yep. Okay. Okay. So so what we're picking up from as a server is basically like having four pieces of a computer inside of one box, because what you told me earlier was the redundancy of a server is important. And it's funny you say redundancy, and I feel like what you're really saying is the fail safe, that servers are like a machine that's built to take care of keeping it from um, breaking. From, it's like we can
Right.
never fail.
Right, because typically, if a company has a server, they're very reliant on it. And if that thing goes down, production stops, whether you're an accounting office or a warehouse or manufacturer.
It's making sense what you're saying, and I'm going to restate it in a different way. It's like it's a machine that's important enough. If 10 people are using a server, and let's say each person pays 900, 1,000. Sometimes people pay even as much as $2,200 for a workstation. But regardless, um, uh, if those machines, let's say $10,000 worth of 10 machines, are all connected to a server, and that server costs typically like, I don't know, $10,000, sometimes $8,000, whatever. Well, when that server breaks, all those 10 people are done. They cannot work, right?
That is correct.
And so it has to have a deep level of this can never break.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why when my workstation breaks and I hold the button in, that's not recommended, is it?
On a server, yikes.
What do they say happens if that happens? If I had a server and I hold the button and or you have a power outage, what happens to a server?
Right. Yeah, if you don't have any battery protection, it could be really bad. I mean, I've personally seen servers completely crash, and it just brings the business to its knees.
So when it crashes, that means applications doesn't work and it can't access the data?
That is correct. And essentially, you've got 10 or 20 or however many employees standing around filing paperwork because they can't log in. They can't work. Your clients are calling. People get frustrated.
So one thing we talked about with workstations is that workstations are only as fast as the bottleneck, right? So I would assume that since 10 people or 100 people have to access a server at the same time, it needs a very wide bottleneck. Is that right?
Yeah, you've got to make sure that those people can get through.
So in other words, what I'm trying to build to is the number one feature of a server is it cannot fail. The number two feature of a server is it has to have a wide gap of a highway so information can be exchanged either on the internet or through intranet.
Sure.
And so that has to be like super high spec level. Is that right? What other... Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, you're good. I was agreeing with you.
What other pieces of the server fundamentally are important? You've got the drives, right? Which is, I have, how many drives does typically come in a server?
Usually at least 3.
So it's like, hey, the first one failed. Is everyone not working? Nope, we got the second and the third. And is that a common thing that the drive fails in a server?
It's the most common component to fail is a hard drive.
Gotcha.
In any computer. Yeah.
So it fails, but the other two are going, and then does something go off? And yeah, you better fix the first one.
So that's a real challenge. So typically, all that there is a little light that blinks, and the problem is Yeah, I know. The problem is unless you have somebody watching for that, who's going to know?
Can't you just pay a guy to look in every hour? Like, there's a red light.
You could. I mean, for instance, we have tools that monitor that and alert our team immediately when that happens. But it's a real challenge. Is business owners simply aren't aware sometimes that that's even a thing. And I remember personally walking in many times, talking with prospective clients, and we check out their equipment, and there's that little orange light, blink, 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 and I'm like, huh, how long's that been going off?
So companies that monitor things, they put a little monitor device in there so that instead of somebody looking at the red light, it goes off on their software wherever they are, and they go, uh-oh, one of the drives are failing.
Right.
Is that standard?
Correct. Yeah.
Makes sense.
And then red flashing lights go off on our side so we can reach out. And sometimes we know about a problem even before the client does.
So going back to what's in a server, it makes it different. So you got typically 3 big chunks, which are like 3 mini computer theory, big
Sure.
molten lava things in there for redundancy. And then you have a lot of RAM.
Yeah, plenty of memory. Memory is what runs applications.
Okay.
So your accounting packages, your line of business applications, databases, and so on.
Bigger power supply than a standard workstation?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's spinning more drives, and not only do you have a bigger power supply, you typically have a redundant power supply because that's the number 2 most common failed component, is because the electricity's coming in, surges and anything like that, it blows it out. you want a secondary power supply to make sure that system stays up and running.
And what else?
Redundant network cards. So it's fairly uncommon, but it's a relatively inexpensive add-on that most manufacturers include. So in most computers, there's just one port, right? You plug in your network cable. Servers tend to have dual, quad, sometimes more. They also have sometimes multiple CPU units, a central processing unit. That's the brain of the computer. Is on bigger servers, it makes sense to get a beefier, bigger single server rather than buying two separate servers. That way you can combine applications onto a single box.
So I'm gonna stick with our metaphor, which is
Okay.
we said yesterday our first episode, spinning
Sure.
plates. So what I'm gonna say is this: you got 10 people. One guy wants to spin plates. One guy wants to juggle. One guy wants to breathe fire. We're creating a circus, right? I know. And the server is basically the organizer of all. The one guy says,
Yeah.
"I want to spit fire." Great. Here's your fire, and here's how you get there. Oh, okay. Thank you. Right.
Yeah.
So okay. So the difference between this is a very short one, but the difference between a server and a workstation, if I'm going to recap, is it has a lot of redundancy in it, so it can't fail because it has to serve multiple people.
Sure.
Multiple people rely on it, and if it goes down, everybody's not working. That's number
Correct.
one. Number two, it has a lot of RAM, which is we learned in the first one, is just random access memory, so it can do multiple things at once, right? And then it may
Yep.
have multiple brains in it because it's so complex it needs a couple of CPUs. Correct?
Correct.
And that's what makes a server more complex and more expensive than a workstation.
Right.
And then just for extra credit, and there's something called a UPS I've heard of, and I don't mean the postal service, and that is Power United.
It's uninterruptible power supply.
And what's that for?
It's commonly called a battery backup.
Oh, okay.
So in the event that there's a power outage or a circuit breaker trips because somebody put a new microwave in, or the janitor runs a new vacuum overnight, that battery backup system keeps the server running. What we're trying to avoid is the server shutting down unexpectedly, which is a cardinal sin when it comes to servers, because servers are constantly running, they're constantly writing information, and if a file is being updated and halfway through the server stops, could be catastrophic. It could prevent the server from booting up, which can be devastating to a business if you cannot access your information. So a battery backup monitors the power, the utility power. If it goes out, it sends a signal to the server and says, "Hey, I just lost power. You need to shut down in 5 or 10 or 15 minutes." The server gracefully shuts down and powers off.
Understood.
Then the electricity issue can be addressed.
Got it. Because servers are so complex that if they shut off uninterrupted, or if I walk over and just pull the power out, you lose all data and everybody stops working. And it may not even be able to work again.
Yep. It can be devastating for a business.
All right, we're learning bit by bit, layman's terms. You've done a great job of teaching me and being so patient with our technical glitches. Several. Do you have anything that you want to add? Like, do we have a closing cliche? Like my friend says, like and subscribe if you're feeling the vibe. Or I know somebody that says, like and share if you care. Do we have anything?
Not yet, sir. We're working on it.
Working on it. All right. Well, happy hunting, everybody. I hope this was helpful.
So
Boom.